Alright everybody, I want to start our video with a little question. Do you know which animal has 4 legs, eats grass, and helps you have wings like an angel? Okay, please give me your answer right now below in the comments section. I don't think this is an easy question, but you're a smart person if you answer this question correctly. So I would love to get into the main topic of today. People are officially determined to find out the truth about Meghan and Harry's children, and people are not going to allow this case to stay hidden any longer. According to Sperry's reports on Archofficial's birth, perhaps Meghan was allowed to sit in with the surrogate. The birth mother supposedly was given an epidural, which does not constitute natural childbirth. So how could she possibly give advice on childbirth if she never experienced the real thing, or even the not real thing? Honestly, I gave up on the deceitful couple a long time ago. I mean, what kind of people would use their children to deceive other people? I don't care what the goal is. And I'm sure this account of Archofficial's birth is absolutely fictional. So this is my take. It needs to be fully investigated and the truth needs to be exposed. I don't think it should be buried like the bullying investigation. The only realistic scenario I can think of is that it was planned for the surrogate to deliver at Frogmore Cottage, maybe with the assistance of Doria, who perhaps was in a situation of assisting a home birth during her work life. You can look up the procedure required to assist in home birth. It's all part of advanced first aid certificates, so I'm guessing Doria, since she claimed she was a social worker, she could have possibly been able to do such a thing. But maybe there was a problem. Maybe the baby was breached, maybe the cord was wrapped around the baby's neck. There could have been some type of fetal stress, and that would have been indicated by seeing black discharge because it had been defecating in the uterus, and that would require an emergency C-section. And I'm not a doctor. I don't know more than anybody else. I'm just speculating here. But it looks like by some miracle, a baby did come out, and this raises a few possibilities. One being that they in fact did hire a surrogate, but the baby came 2 weeks early, or perhaps it was stillborn. Maybe they secured access to a different baby. Maybe it was her niece Ashley who just appeared from nowhere for the docuseries. Whatever the truth is, in this situation, somebody has broken the law because somebody was complicit in this cover-up. Every woman out there who has a baby, whether they give birth in a taxi, in their private home, or in a birthing center, they have to undergo a postpartum health checkup afterwards, of course. And any OB or midwife or even ambulance driver who didn't arrange this would be considered completely incompetent. There's another big question surrounding the mysterious reason as to why the night nurse who attended to Archie on the first night was fired before she even completed her shift. Now, the reason given was that she showed some unprofessional conduct, but what exactly does that mean? Meghan is certainly not a trained health professional, or any other kind of professional really, so I would just love to know what she knows about professional conduct. Surely this would be the case if the nurse, for example, wandered into other areas of the home other than the nursery. Maybe she turned on some really loud music, she was smoking cigarettes or something like that, ignored the baby crying, didn't understand how to practice infection control. Maybe she stole something, she was drunk, she fell asleep. I mean, there are possibilities for sure. However, I don't believe anybody who was recommended to Harry and Meghan, at that time a royal couple, by an agency would have been so incompetent. I'm sure they would have had a perfect CV. I just don't think it makes sense that somebody would have been able to get in there and just not know how to do their job. I mean, she probably would have worked for the top echelons of British society. I mean, otherwise there's no way that person could be considered capable of caring for the sixth in line to the throne. The agency's reputation would have been at stake if they sent an unsuitable person to take care of a VIP family member. So the only logical conclusion that I could come to is that the reason for the agency's nurse instant dismissal was because of Meghan. Maybe Meghan saw some CCTV footage of the registered nurse becoming a bit curious because of the time of birth and the developmental inconsistencies of her ward. So a neonate's age is pretty easy to determine. You just look at the condition of the detached umbilical cord. And one important role of the nurse is to do cord checks. It's part of their normal observations. Cord checks are normal because you gotta estimate the time of birth and you need to check up and see how the baby's doing, make sure they're hitting all those developmental milestones that they're supposed to hit early on. Another relevant dating of a newborn is in the poop. So black meconium is passed for about 6 hours, and then it gradually changes to a dirty green color, and then, of course, the yellow we're all familiar with. The night nurse would not have been professional if she didn't record all Archie's vital signs during her routine nightly checks. Usually it would be after a feeding and after a diaper change. She would have to talk about the frequency of the peeing, and she would have to talk about the color of the poop too. The heart rate, the temperature, the color, all that. And I do believe that Archie was more like 2 weeks old. He wasn't 14 hours old. And when the nurse checked under the abdominal bandage, she or he realized that the umbilical cord had already completely healed. There was no clamp. And so they decided to take a photo, which legally that is allowed. But because Harry and Meghan are not medical professionals, they would view this as an invasion of privacy. But an RN, of course, he or she would have been using a work phone camera and photographing the baby as part of the job. So maybe Harry and Meghan saw this activity on their CCTV footage, and immediately they fired her because they were worried that she was going to reveal their secret. Maybe they demanded that she or he delete the film footage, but they couldn't have deleted it from a health database because, well, it would have been impossible. It's part of professional patient observations. My suspicion is the nurse might have been paid some amount of money to stay quiet because she, I assume it's she, it could have been a he though, has never come forward with the truth. And what really made me feel suspicious was when we heard Harry say how much the baby had changed in 2 weeks during the public announcement of the birth, and that was supposedly only a day or two after Archie was born. Many people had already sussed out that Meghan Markle was never really pregnant. I mean, there are so many legitimate images of the moon bump falling to her knee, swinging side to side. It looked like it had a life of its own. It would shapeshift, it would blow up, and then it would deflate all in the same day and even make loud popping noises. I suspect that Meghan Markle faced her final judgment day when the moon bump became completely detached from her torso, and the media cameras were all around. So many people saw the footage on the internet of her wearing that red coat, and you could see that the moon bump had dropped below her knees by the time she made it to the car. Now, this was the moment that Meghan should not have been able to deny the truth anymore, but because she's an unapologetic liar, she continued to deny what we were seeing in front of our very eyes. Both Meghan and Harry, though, should have realized then that you cannot run away from the truth. Meghan was caught. So I'm guessing she realized that she had to face the paparazzi again in about 2 days, and she felt like she couldn't do it. Now, the press were going to be brutal. They were going to be asking her all kinds of difficult questions, and the thought of such a public shaming was something she simply couldn't bear. We do know they tried to back out of attending that circus performance on the 16th of January, and it was only 48 hours away. There was no time to allow the drama to settle down a little bit. And for whatever reason, the late Queen insisted that they needed to make that public appearance at Royal Albert Hall. And I'm not sure that the film footage actually made it into the media, but it was leaked to the internet. So I think the only conclusion we can come to is that it was within that 48-hour window that Meghan Markle started to feel panicked. She probably didn't have much sleep, and she had lots of time to plot and scheme during the witching hours. The fact that in the Oprah Winfrey interview, Meghan Markle talked about being suicidal on the 16th, that made me really look closely at the timeline of events leading up to her claims to Oprah about her suicidal ideations. Considering that Meghan is incredibly manipulative, my suspicion is that considering her exposure as a fraud at Birkenhead, she probably really did threaten suicide if the palace didn't silence the media as some type of bargaining chip. And so Meghan was using her attendance at this Royal Albert Hall event on the 16th as leverage. And it would be typical of Meghan, wouldn't it, to try to blackmail somebody like the Queen, using dirty tactics like threatening suicide, that she was going to throw herself down the stairs if the press were not given an expensive gag order. And I believe that it was January 15th of 2019 when the palace lawyers called a private meeting with the media bigwigs and paid a lot of money for a super injunction so that all media commentary pertaining to the speculations about fake pregnancy would be gagged forever. Because while they attended Royal Albert Hall on the following evening, Meghan Markle looked so filled with self-confidence, she looked relaxed as could be. So the conclusion I came to is that if she had any problems at that point, Well, okay, it was in the form of a stiff warning by the Queen. Meghan cannot stand being told what to do. She hates being warned about her behavior. She's not going to listen to any advice. So she would have been very angry about that. Even after what the Queen could have done to rescue Meghan Markle, of course Meghan was going to be pissed. That wouldn't stop Meghan from trying to get revenge. And it looks like now we're just going to have to wait for King William to do something. I mean, honestly, it's always been easier for people to accept a Cain and Abel situation than a father and son problem, because blame is always placed at the feet of the father, never the child. King Charles also has a history of being called the bad guy in relationships. It took him 25 years to be vindicated for his role in the divorce from Diana. But since he's already planned for his funeral, I guess any hopes that he would live long enough to be forgiven for exposing all the bad behavior of Harry and Meghan, it's not looking good. And we know that the pro-Republican British media giants are already sympathizing with Harry the traitor and his narcissistic, scheming, plotting, gold-digging wife Meghan Markle. I mean, the two of them would happily kill for the crown if it meant it would be on their heads. Meghan is a truly evil woman, and Harry is her accomplice, her willing accomplice. These details seem to only exist in TV dramas, but Meghan applies them to her own life. Every trick she uses is pretty sophisticated, I gotta hand it to her. But see, she thinks she's so smart when she's not. I mean, that doesn't mean everybody else is dumb. People are a lot smarter than she thinks we are, and karma is gonna come for her. I hope society will not have anyone like Meghan ever again. I hope that we can do better as a civilization. And what about you? What are your thoughts on this issue? Please comment your opinion below and also answer the fun question at the beginning of the video. Goodbye for now, and I'll be back soon to see you again in other videos on my YouTube channel. And don't forget to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Love you guys so much, and I'll see you soon.